Welcome to the next edition of Grid Pulse. I'm Bryce Yonker with Grid Forward. We're recording live here from Houston at CERAWeek, and we have two fantastic guests with us, Hannah Green from Microsoft and Rayford Smith from Google. Hannah, good to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me, Bryce. It's so good to be here with you, Rayford. And CERAWeek, it's a big, busy week and a great time to have this conversation.
You guys can probably hear the buzz behind us, so it'll be a little bit of a different background than we're used to having. Rayford, maybe we'll start with you. Obviously, you're there at Google, but maybe you can give us a bit of a background about yourself, what you're doing, what led you there to that role.
Sure. So, hi, Rayford Smith. I'm the global head of power and energy for Google Cloud. So I'm responsible for all our power and energy offerings in AI and cloud and whatnot for us globally. It's an exciting time to be in this space. I've been in the industry for 36 years, which I don't usually tell people in polite company, but I've been around for quite a while and I've never seen the amount of excitement, all the transformation, and frankly, all the things we can do with all of this. And so that's what led me back to Google. I got recruited to come back and lead this vertical, and I got to tell you, it's an awesome place to be.
All right, Hannah, over to you. Maybe you can give us a bit of background on yourself and what led you to that role at Microsoft.
Absolutely. I lead our global go-to-market and innovation group for energy and resources, which at Microsoft includes our oil and gas, power and utilities, and mining groups. I'm also a very proud Grid Forward board member. So very happy to be here for this conversation. My team works with energy companies globally, really to translate their ambitions around technology and today specifically AI into execution. So we see ourselves, everybody on our team comes from the energy industry, but we're deeply versed in technology. And how do we cross that bridge and be strong partners with the industry to make that innovation come to life while respecting the very specific needs that our energy customers have?
I know the listeners can't see this, but it feels a bit like the paparazzi. We're being video recorded and photographed here.
They're really here for you, Bryce.
Red carpet moment, Rayford. Energy attack.
Rayford, I'll let you start on our first question here. What energy and grid priorities do you guys have at the top of the list, and how are you all working with your partners to make those happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing that we're focusing on is, how do we expand to meet the demands of our customers, right? So that's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be developed. But at the exact same time, I view the AI story is the good news story of this space. A lot of the capabilities that we've developed are also the same ones that our customers are using to drive great value. Case in point, we worked with Westinghouse to improve the construction of new nuclear plants that cut 25% off the cost, 50% off the time. So it's like we can also help, and we're helping enable, new carbon-free energy resources, lower costs for customers, more reliability. That's the coolest time to be in this, is that we get to do those same things. It's not just about building more data centers, having more infrastructure. It's also about using that same technology to transform the same industry.
Over to you. Same question.
Yeah, we are in a similar space. We, of course, are a large power buyer. We are also the world's largest carbon buyer as well. And so we continue to be an energy consumer and to work towards our sustainability goals within this industry. On the other side, where my team sits, it's an innovation conversation. And so how do we bring our AI to life for grid operations? How do we bring it to life for field workers to improve the safety, the time doing wrench work and take out the paperwork and the back of office work that helps our folks be safe and be successful out there at a time of massive growth and demand for our industry to be delivering at scale.
So this is an interesting question. I haven't actually asked this way, but your organizations are valued in the trillions and the grid operators aren't. So you guys are really the big stakeholders often in these conversations, but how are processes, how are interests for building data infrastructure, data center, data infrastructure in general, and energy infrastructure similar? How are they different? Hannah, maybe I'll let you start, and then Rayford, you can add on.
Sure. Well, the first is what we share, and that's that we both deliver mission critical infrastructure. Our critical infrastructure sits on top of the grid and of energy's critical infrastructure, but equally as a compute and digital and AI company, whether it's a large retail company or a healthcare company or a manufacturing company or an airline, they trust us with their compute and with their digital and AI capabilities. So we think of ourselves as well as a critical infrastructure provider. And that's what we really share deeply with energy. And there's a lot of common cause in our expectations for resilience, for reliability, for safety, and for security, as well as for affordability. And so there is a lot of shared need and shared common cause there. I think the area that we're moving into together is around the community engagement layer. Our utilities are deeply, deeply versed in engaging with their communities to build infrastructure. And this is a muscle that they have. And they are, on the utility side, community and local organizations. We as a global organizations are getting more and more local because our infrastructure is inherently local. Infrastructure is physical, and that makes it local. And so this is where we've made our community first AI infrastructure pledge that we will be in those discussions at the community level with utilities, but also with community members. And there's a few elements to it. Where we're using water, we will provide back as much water as we use. We will ensure that power stays affordable. We will pay our full share. That's our commitment on the power side. We also want to invest in AI skilling in communities and make sure that communities that host this important critical infrastructure for our economy are also reaping the benefits of this technology.
Maybe I'll kick a subset of this question to you, Rayford, which is utilities are facing pressures maybe more intensely than they have in some amount of decades. How are they doing in meeting the surge for demand of electricity in particular? And maybe, a side question, how are you guys partnering with them as well?
Yeah, I mean, I feel for the utilities. They're almost like the dog that caught the proverbial car, right? They're so excited about growth, and now they have more growth than I think they have seen maybe ever, right? I think the last big boom was around air conditioning, right? And that caused a whole lot of infrastructure to be built. There was a rate limiter to that, which was, there's only so much conditioned space for air conditioning. When you think about what's the rate limiter for AI, it's human curiosity. And I don't know really how to put an upper boundary on that. I tell that to energy executives. They look a little both panicked and excited at the same time. So how are they doing? I think they're doing the best they can. I think they're struggling with the sheer size of the demand. That introduces new problems. On the other hand, like I said earlier, the technology that we're developing actually helps them solve those problems. We have a new security constrained optimized power flow modeling. We are doing really interesting things with the technology that helps them solve those same problems that used to take hours, days, whatever. They can do it really fast. They can do it much cheaper. And in turn, that helps all customers, right? It benefits safety, reliability, affordability, and certainly sustainability, all of those kind of packaged up. And so I think they're doing well. I think they're still going to meet the demand that's in front of them. I think we're all going to help them make that goal. But I think you're going to see a lot of innovation to get there.
I'm going to pivot this one to you, Hannah, a little bit, because we've been interacting with both of your organizations for well over a decade. And had we this conversation maybe 3 years ago, this is where we would have started and ended it, which is basically around the cloud, which I think is still a pertinent conversation that just doesn't feel like it's getting enough attention anymore. How are the cloud capabilities going with regards to the grid? Is the friction that was there by operators still existing as far as them adopting it? Is the regulatory alignment to recoup costs? Is that starting to get clarified? Kind of where are we at on this front now?
Massive acceleration. It's uneven globally. So I want to be clear about that. We've seen our customers in Europe move very, very quickly. Even 3 years ago, they were really ahead of the race. We've also seen a lot of early adoption in Australia. North America is now, I would say, in our massive acceleration moment and moving very, very quickly, with AI being a compelling event. There is so much draw for things like advanced forecasting and the capabilities that we have now with customers to improve forecasting by 30+% with generative AI on top of what were traditional AI models, or to, have full automation in supply chain, to be able to do physics-based modeling that unlocks an engineering and design study from what would have taken weeks to down to days. We've got a partner, Think Labs AI, that's been doing some work with Southern California Edison and some of our other customers, applying those models, getting power to customers faster. And so again, to Rayford's point, we have a moment in the industry where people need advanced planning, advanced forecasting, advanced construction, delivery, optimization of the resources we already have. AI is an unlock across all of those key areas. And that's, bringing customers into these conversations saying, what can we do? What can we do differently? And why can't we do this? So we're even approaching the problems from a, kind of a breakthrough mindset. Well, what's stopping us from doing this? And a lot of the times it's, well, we need to lift the digital foundations. We need to accelerate what your teams are able to do with AI. We need to do it in a way that is secure and scalable, but we can run a lot faster. And so our customers and our partners have moved into that position and they're accelerating.
Rayford, anything else on cloud enabling digitization before I jump into the AI pool?
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree with all of Hannah's points. I would add to it, most of the time, the challenge I see isn't in technology. It's actually change management. There are a whole lot of areas where customers are really excited about things. And there are a lot of other areas that we can help, but the customer isn't necessarily comfortable with that. And so we're letting the customers, help guide where the innovation goes. That doesn't mean there aren't capabilities out there. There are. But it's really a matter of how do they want to go through this journey and choose their own adventure for AI. That being said, the capabilities that we're seeing, and I mean, there are countless examples. Hannah named a whole bunch of them. We see the same things. The results that we can get here are truly impressive. What we find is that often when we start talking about, oh, by the way, did you know that we can cut your planning time down from taking minutes to run a power flow simulation to doing it in a fraction of a second? Oftentimes they're almost met with a bit of disbelief. I've never seen that. I didn't know you could do that. We were doing a safety process with one of our customers, and we turned it into where they could every day for each of them, they could do a briefing that was like a podcast like this, except for it was interactive and they could talk to it and ask it questions and have them give feedback. Unbelievable. You've never seen line crews before light up when they're like, wait, I can ask it questions and it can tell me about what I'm going to do today and how to do that safely and whether or not my crew that's with me, that they're all ready and trained for it. It's just unbelievable. And I find that, like I said, it's not the tech that's hard. It's that change management process of getting to buy in and see it.
I think the other piece in our industry, and, having all been in this industry here a long time, we know that we need to meet people where they are. That, the ethos of being in the power and utility space is safety and reliability and affordability, and coming to the table and saying, we recognize and we honor those priorities. And that means that everything we talk about is going to be designed with a zero trust, security first mindset, period. And so how do we then walk into the conversations about getting you the results and the outcomes and the ROI and the value that you need, while respecting that we need to have a lot of hard conversations about architecture and about security and about governance, and sitting in that and being a partner through them and with them, and then offering a lot of flexibility. We do a lot of hybrid cloud aligned to, in North America to NERC compliance today. And so we are able to do that and offer those hybrid options. So being a partner alongside and really meeting our customers and our partners where they are and respecting their needs is an important part of this transition.
And one more point on that. So yeah, I got asked because we were doing a lot of work in nuclear and in construction and operation centers. And one of the questions that always gets asked is always NERC. Right. I feel like NERC should be tattooed somewhere on all of us because we deal with it often and we have capabilities to do that. I was telling this customer, I said, hey, by the way, we have the ability to do a totally air gap solution. So you want to bring all that goodness of AI, you want to bring all the latest technology, and you want to have it completely air gapped. We can do that. And I think a lot of times customers come in assuming that something can't be done, like the safety demonstration I gave, I can't do that, or the really fast optimization solve can't be done, or, oh, you can't really do that air gaps. Actually, they'd be surprised the technology can actually do quite a bit. And we find that we're spending a lot of time just going, no, actually we can do that. And having those kind of dialogues with the customer. It doesn't mean you just rush right in and go crazy on all the scary stuff, but it means that I'm not sure customers realize just how fast and how far the technologies come for them.
Right. I think we'll come back around to the safety and trust building area, but I do want to dive into the AI pool. That was the focus of our main gathering last year. So with regards to capabilities, you already mentioned advanced forecasting. We had a lot of highlights around asset optimization. There was a lot of highlights around streamlining complex processes like interconnections and regulatory filings. both of you are bringing, great capabilities to back office efficiency. Let's just talk about what's out there, what's the here and now, and what's kind of right around the corner. I don't want to look too far out into the future. Hannah, if you can start, how are you seeing AI solutions show up on the grid now?
Well, we made a large announcement today here at CERAWeek around our AI for nuclear capabilities. We've been working with the nuclear industry for a long, long time on my team. And a few years ago, we launched a generative AI for permitting initiative with nuclear companies. We now have nuclear operators around the world using that solution. It's now been rolled out to wind developers, solar developers, in some cases, critical minerals and mining companies as well, who need to go through a permitting process and ensure the regulatory compliance of their site. So we started on the permitting side, but permitting is the beginning of your project. And it's a long first mile, but it's just the first mile. Today, what we announced is the combination of that generative AI for permitting capabilities with our partners at NVIDIA to now have a full digital twin, digital optimization, and digital design for nuclear sites with our first customer, Allo Atomics. And this just really takes, a lot of the cost overhead to get more carbon-free energy through nuclear onto the grid faster and take some of those cost pressures off of these emerging and innovative companies so that they, in one digital space, can go through permitting, can go through design, can go through optimization in a way that is safe, secure, compliant, but a lot cheaper and a lot more scalable than one nuclear plant is one nuclear plant. Well, this moves us much more into a scaled fashion. So that is a really exciting new capability to announce today.
Anything on where you're seeing AI show up now, Rayford?
I used to call this the curse of the use case, which is that utilities would get so excited about a use case and they would go develop and get technology and all kind of obsess over it. And they wouldn't think of all the other things you could go do with it. I think we're in the death of the use case right now because a lot of what we think about in terms of AI isn't, hey, I've got a widget for a widget problem, right? It's more like, hey, by the way, that data element that fetches data, that agent can be used for a lot of other things. Oh, that thing that's going to, contextualize and bring a lot of things together can really work well. For example, we have a solution that we use for power flow analysis that I mentioned. We also have a solution for weather where we've been doing really well in terms of weather forecasting and accuracy. What happens when you start putting those two together? And you start thinking about unit commitment and overall scheduling and therefore cost for systems, for complex systems. Same thing you start with veg management, but veg management isn't the only problem, right? What about overhead to undergrounds? What about line inspections? What about asset management and asset health? We're able to start putting together individual AI cases and start to link them. And that kind of creates a whole ecosystem of value. And I think customers are somewhere in the beginning of first, like, let's talk about atomic elements. Let's talk about the basics. Then once they get past that, they're like, okay, we can do some really cool stuff. Pick your area, right? Then it's, oh, wow, I didn't realize I could start linking all of these things together. And that's really where I see us going, is this sort of like agentic universe where all sorts of agents are there helping employees make decisions better, helping customers, making the system overall more efficient and faster.
Building on that, Rayford, one of the things that's been on my mind, because we're seeing the same thing, it's moving from individualized AI use cases to agentic workflow and breaking down business processes. Because if you apply AI to a bad business process, you have made your bad business process faster. So we do have to be thoughtful about breaking down the business processes and helping people use AI in a way that optimizes the work, as if they stepping back, and as leaders stepping back with our teams and saying, how would we do this differently now that we have this toolkit in our hands? So this is really the depth work that I think we're going to be going through as an industry in the next couple months and deepening the rigor around that. But one of the things I learned recently that was really eye-opening, spending more time with startups and growth companies, is that on average, a startup today in the AI space has 10 agents for one human. Startups are they're the most constrained part of our ecosystem, right? Startups have limited capital, limited time, limited people. What a breakthrough it is if you are a growth company to have one human overseeing 10 different agents to scale your workforce. They're asking themselves, I heard directly from startup CEOs, before I go hire those 4 positions, could it be an agent? What more could we do in product and road development if we built an agent for that? We're not there yet. As an energy industry, we're not there on that human to agent ratio, but it's a really good moment to actually look at nimble, small, highly constrained growth companies and ask ourselves, like, why not?
It's funny. I was having this conversation Monday on an energy trading and risk management talk I was doing, which, by the way, as an ex-Enron employee, I usually think is disqualifying for me, that I shouldn't be talking at those events. That being said, we were having this conversation about agents and what they could do. And I was saying, look, as an ex-energy trader, I am impressed that we can create agentic capabilities that can trade, that can do all the back office settlements, that can do a whole lot of capabilities. And there was a lady who was the head of HR in there, and she said, like, well, what does that mean for my employees? I said, well, guess what? All the things that the agents are doing, you can't just claim like, well, that's a black box and I don't know, right? You have to think about governance, trust, capability, like all of that has to be part of that dialogue when you're thinking about these AIs. It can certainly be done. It's accomplishable. It's not an insurmountable task, but it means you got to be thoughtful in that process to be able to bring all that agentic capability forward and know, like, why is it making those decisions? Why did it do that? How are we working together with this? Because we're absolutely going to see, as Hannah was describing, a whole lot of agents that are going to be with every one of your employees.
I was going to dig a little deeper on use cases, but rather than tail off on that, let's get into this trust.
That's to use cases,
That's
apparently.
right.
I like it.
I love it.
Let's get into this trust issue, right? Because if you're going to, air quotes, unleash AI on running the grid better, there's a lot of security concerns. What governance is in place, what best practices are in place, what oversight is in place, what's regulated federally versus at a state level. I just have a lot of questions. Hannah, maybe you can start. What do we need to do to get to trust so that we can use these systems effectively? And how do the right guardrails and governance aspects come into play here?
Well, first, when we're talking about core systems, from our standpoint, we are talking about an operator in the loop. We are talking about AI assisting operators. We aren't looking at automation for critical systems from an AI standpoint. So I think that's really important as we approach this conversation around trust. It's how does AI help our operators? How does AI help our field technicians? How is it a co-pilot with you, providing you information that helps you do your job? I like to think about, especially when we get into the grid operations side, we've sent our grid operators into bad weather with the controls of a biplane. We're like, here's a really messy grid that's getting messier, that's getting harder to operate with increasing weather events, a lot more data patterns, and here's not so great controls for you today. Well, the future we're moving into, I think about how do we up-level those jobs, those capabilities, our rocks, our control systems, so that they're Top Gun flying a jet and a fighter pilot with a lot more technical capabilities and insights coming through to them at their fingertips. That operator is an important part of our ecosystem. I think the other piece that you brought up is around security. If you took away everything else Microsoft did, we'd be the world's largest cybersecurity company. So this is ingrained in who we are and how we show up and how we operate. The security conversation has moved very rapidly in the last couple of years, and AI has only accelerated that conversation. I think we are now, as an energy industry, at a moment where we can see that trying to do security alone or be in an air-gapped environment or fight the future is not entirely reasonable. You have to have good security partners. It's why we've partnered with companies like Dragos, who bring a bunch of OT depth into this conversation. And a lot of being effective in security is having visibility. So having tools that give you visibility to all the agents and AI capabilities, both that your team builds, but from your partners as well. Having that full traceability and visibility across your stack. And then having good cybersecurity partners who can give you the global telemetry. We see over 100 trillion signals every day in our CSOC as Microsoft. Who help you see dangers and risks before they hit you because they're thinking about it and looking at it at a global scale. And that's really the scale of the cybersecurity environment today.
Yeah. So same question to you, Rayford. I mean, without good governance and without, effective guardrails, how are we going to build trust? So any thoughts on this area?
Yeah. I mean, you step back and think about it. I think about kind of the watchwords of the industry, right? Safety is always the first one, right? And when you're responsible for the economy and the livelihoods and health of literally everyone, right, it breeds a certain level of caution, rightfully so. I don't want anyone to treat the energy infrastructure as flippantly because I rely on it just as much as everybody else does. That being said, that process of building trust, I think, is a methodical one. I think transparency is another one. I like that from Hannah. I agree. And I think it's confidence building steps along the way. There are a lot of different factors we can use to tune a model, to do things to cut down on hallucinations and to enable capabilities and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it's like I said, it's a human issue, right? It's not so much a technology one, it's a human one. And what we do when we do that is we have to think about trust isn't just making sure that I get an answer out of an AI application. It's that I'm using the data properly, that I'm not misusing it, right? So we do everything from encrypt at rest and in motion. We can't see it even when we're processing it. We do all these things to show customers that you can trust our infrastructure. You can trust our capabilities. And like I said, that is a methodical, slow process to build that over time.
Tired of costly grid upgrades and unpredictable demand? Virtual Peaker's AI-powered virtual power plant software empowers utilities to maximize the value of distributed energy resources. The cutting-edge platform optimizes DER operations, enhances grid stability, and unlocks new revenue streams. Learn more at virtual-peaker.com. Now back to our episode.
I want to pivot us a little bit from our current conversation, and I'll kick this one to you, Hannah. Affordability. What an imperative at the very top of the list for things that everybody wants to see as an outcome on the grid. The last 2 or 3 years, while they have seen a surge in demand, have also seen, an uptick that we haven't seen in decades for prices of delivered power. How can all stakeholders come together and really work together so that the outcome of affordability is something that isn't hoped for, but is actually achieved?
Absolutely. I think about this in sort of three main pillars. The first is just recognizing the moment we're at as an industry. We have been asking our utilities to build more infrastructure in an increasingly challenging operating environment with more resilience risks than we've ever had before from increasing weather events broadly. And to do that in an inflationary decade where costs of all supply chain inputs are rising, and to maintain, a levelized or decreasing rises in rates over time. At the same time, we're going through a massive growth cycle. I think it's really important in that space that for those of us that are demanding large loads, for those of us that are looking for infrastructure to support our needs, that we do need to pay our fair share. That's our commitment as Microsoft. And it's broadly a commitment that we want to see represented in the industry. And then third, it's what are the tools that we bring to the table that help increase affordability that, again, going back to 1 and 2, utilities have a hard job right now. It is an environment where costs are going up in the economy. How can we use technology as a lever to help stabilize, to help create unlocks, to take out of processes that have been really expensive, like vegetation management, and apply new tooling and new capabilities because there's an unlock there that there wasn't 3 years ago. And so I think it's balancing sort of all 3 legs of those stools. And there's a piece of this that is pragmatic. Rates are likely to rise again because we are in an inflationary decade. The costs of all inputs are rising. But how do we minimize that? And how do those of us that are showing up with grid needs make sure that we are not a part of that rise and we do pay our fair share?
I'm going to send a different one to you, Rayford, and then we're going to go through a rapid fire round here. For next generation solutions, you all are leveraging your buying power and really proving what's possible going from lab to kind of some of those first deployments in the industry. How do we continue to commercially scale some of these solutions, whether it's small modular nuclear reactors, whether it's enhanced geothermal, long duration storage, maybe fusion if that's moving along? How do you guys continue to help the industry move these areas ahead?
Yeah, I mean, I think we see that innovation has like this awesome opportunity, and then it goes through this valley of death, right? Where it needs to scale, it needs to be funded, it needs to grow and catch on. And then the other side of it, it continues to grow and be something great. We're trying to help it through that valley of death, right? Because we're saying look, our investments in geothermal and fusion, in advanced conductoring, where with CTC Global, where we're able to use the fiber and make the whole line a sensor, we're able to take that technology. Not only can we be and okay with the risk of being a first of a kind in some of these areas, but second, we believe that when others see the benefit associated with it, that it can scale much faster. And that's why we've invested in all of them. We think that it's not just about Google, it's about really everyone, right? If we're just trying to invest just for Google's sake, maybe we don't make all those investments, but we believe that going through that valley and coming out the other side and being able to achieve scale means we need to help them get those initial hurdles done. We need to get the initial economics, the initial technical pieces solved. And once we've done that, it should be able to take off and scale.
All right, you guys ready for the lightning round?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to throw short terms out, and one of you guys can answer, and then we'll move to the next. So the first one's going to be around distributed energy resources and aggregated virtual power. Opportunity ahead and what's happening in that space that you're excited about.
I've spent a chunk of my career in this space, so I'll hop in. Widely available, a resource at our fingertips. We continue to need the right frameworks to incent it.
And I think, once again, I also spent a ton of my career in that space. I think there's a ton of those capabilities. I think they're still not trusted, right? That's the other side of it, is if you're the grid operator, you're like, I want to know it's there. I want to know exactly how much and exactly where. That's the other piece, though.
Grid analytics, using the data that is coming at us in a capable fashion.
Swimming in opportunity. We as an industry have more data than literally any other industry. We're using it better and better every day, but this is where AI is going to become energy's superpower. There's only room to grow.
I was working with a customer that was getting all this SCADA data out of their system, and they still weren't able to catch things like when an asset was going to have a failure, and we're pumping that through AI, and it's spotting instantly that there's a problem on those things and helping them get ahead of it. So yeah, agree. We are swimming maybe not even isn't the right analogy, right? Drowning, overwhelmed. There's so much data. How well you're using it. Like, I still think we're in the opening innings of that fight.
Yeah, I said if we were using a baseball analogy, we haven't even gotten to first yet there. Cybersecurity.
Oh, wow. Cybersecurity. I think AI is an enabler and also part of that issue, right? And I think the nature of the threats itself, they're polymorphic. They continue to change and adapt. We're looking at all sorts of things that are happening on the OT side. And, I was telling this to a grid operator the other day. I'm like, how do you know that it's a cybersecurity issue? It could be a telecom issue. It could be an operational issue. It could be some combination therein. And there's so much that's going on. You're going to need something to sort through all that data quickly to be able to help identify where the risks are.
It's also been AI has been a huge gift to our cybersecurity teams. If you talk to
Absolutely.
CISOs in our industry, they are one of the business groups that has the hardest time attracting great talent. And this is an area where the reporting that you need to do as a CISO and security team, as well as the threat hunting that you need to do, agents and co-pilots for security have been a huge area of collaboration with our CISO community.
And then my last one will just be transmission.
Where do I get more of it? Transmission is awesome. Forever it was like they used to joke that's where the electrical engineering students went, and distribution was like purgatory. I don't know why. I always thought distribution was much cooler. There's a lot going on now suddenly in transmission, and suddenly we find we don't have enough information. Suddenly we find we have a lack of capacity, and there's a ton of challenges in front of it. That being said, I see some really promising capabilities with AI to unlock.
Yeah, I am bullish on AI for improved planning. We have phenomenal partners in this space that are helping with more intentional planning, as well as physics-based models, trying to understand where we could unlock and more strategically grow the grid. I'll shout out Copperleaf, that is now fully available on Azure as a really standardized tool in the planning community, but they're doing so much more with AI in that tooling today, and partners like ThinkLabs AI and our partners with MISO that have really taken their data estate and said, well, what could we do with our planning tools that helps us move faster and get more power on the grid?
Hannah and Rayford, it's a pleasure having you with us here. Enjoy the rest of your show, and we look forward to partnering with you guys on so many exciting things ahead.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks again to our season sponsor, Virtual Peaker. If you enjoy Grid Pulse, please follow us on your favorite podcast platform, give us a like or a review, and tell your colleagues. You can listen to all episodes and learn more about our efforts to advance the grid at gridforward.org.